of light years from the next exoplanet that, you know, might have habitable conditions on it. The issue of whether or not we will have a sustainable atmosphere and climate has to be a unifying, fundamental, number one priority for the species as a whole right now. Because of all the other problems we have, no matter if we solved every problem from acne to, you name it, speeding, that would be totally useless without a sustainable system. And our system that now sustains basic life on the planet is in dire jeopardy. And if you doubt that, come to Seattle, where ash was falling like the apocalypse last week, where our forests are raging, where islands are actually going underwater, where the glaciers are melting at unprecedented levels. Our basic level of sustainable is very much at risk. And it's difficult for people in public life to talk in these apocalyptic terms, but it is the case. And I've been thinking about a new way of talking about climate disruption. I spent a lot of time in my life as governor declaring emergencies when the Wenatchee National Forest is burning down, declaring emergencies when a whole mudslide of mountain collapses during the biggest rainstorms we've had. I'm tired of declaring temporary one-off emergencies. We've got to look at this as a planetary emergency. And there is no other way to think about it that is adequate to the task at hand.
So that's when I would say, okay, you can put it all out there, but then, hold on, this AI, is this going to be held by certain companies or certain countries? You know, we know there was a major nation state leader who said last week that the country that controls AI will control the world. So
that was the Russian leader.
It's as easy as looking at it and swiping up.
We've handed over, think about how much Google and Apple know about you. It's more than any government has known about you in the past.
Unless they give it to the government.
Exactly.
I mean, sort of de facto, we've sort of handed over this authority to the platforms and we've placed this trust in them. And so I think for a majority of the population, that's just going to be the reality of everyday living.
To be the pathway towards equity, towards progress, towards prosperity, basically, World 2.0, I'm a professor in environmental science. I would even argue, let's stop talking about the environment. I mean, there's no such thing really as the environment. What we're talking about is human prosperity, human well-being, and human equity of us as a world to survive and prosper on this planet Earth.
People like to sort of withdraw from connecting it to climate change, going, this is not because of climate change, or you can't attribute climate change to any single weather event, which is true, technically, strictly speaking. But we know that the severity and intensity and frequency of these climate events have been rising over the last few years.
Dangerous wildfires exploding in California. It's closing in on homes.
Wildfires lighting up the skies in Southern California.
It was a tornado of embers going through here.
I've never seen anything like this.
This is the sound and the sight of firefighters losing ground in the suburbs of Los Angeles.
A major earthquake that has rocked central Mexico.
And of course, today's quake comes on the 32-year anniversary of a massive earthquake in Mexico.
Tuesday's massive 7.1 earthquake leveled 38 buildings.
Screams of "Oh my God" echoing through Mexico City. Buildings crumbled and collapsed, sending dust clouds over the city.
Earthquakes are being felt more often in Bali as locals and tourists brace for the Mount Agung volcano to erupt.
After storming through the Caribbean, Hurricane Maria slammed Puerto Rico on Wednesday, the 10th strongest Atlantic hurricane ever recorded.
After Hurricane Maria ripped apart the island's entire power grid. Now families across the island trying to prepare for the humid darkness of life off the grid.
Is it possible to project what will happen with these weather events in the future? Will they continue to get more intense?
So, I think the projections and the signs are showing that the intensity of these types of events will increase.
Second, let me speak to the accelerating progress we're seeing in artificial intelligence. Over the last 5 or so years, we've seen amazing progress in automation, machine learning, and AI.
Whatever Estonians do as citizens these days, it's likely to involve their e-card.
This is how Estonia works. Everybody has a card to access public services online.
And here's something for the philosophical among you to ponder on. Estonia has basically embarked on an experiment that certainly smudges, perhaps even erases, the connections between state and country. If the state's functioning components can be sent down a fibre optic cable to work perfectly well from the other side of the world, well, will the states of the future need a fixed location at all?
This way, the government also knows more about its citizens. To many in Europe, this idea of an all-knowing state is a big worry.
Digital ID is part of every regular ID card in Estonia already for last 16 years. You know, digital identity is automatically created at the birth. A doctor enters the details of a birth into the system, and without the doctor herself recognizing this, in the background, the system is creating digital identity for a baby. Parents later add the name, of course, without going to any office, and the digital citizen is born.
Forget the cash or the plastic. Now your payment option is right at your fingertips, literally. Customers at the Cost Cutter supermarket at London's Brunel University are the first in the world to pay for their groceries with finger vein scanners.
But today, this shop became the first supermarket on the planet to use the new technology.
Another step, or finger to be precise, towards consigning cards and cash to history. Works by using a small infrared scanner to detect unique patterns in the veins in a person's fingertips. The information is then linked to a customer's bank details.
So digital services can offer seamless coming into this world, seamless life in Europe for all our citizens, if we take it in our hands to guarantee for them. But this is not the only thing which we need to do, of course. One thing is identity. One thing is digital services.
So, do you think it's more inspiring or alarming overall to have this kind of technology available to us?
Overall, it's pretty alarming because nobody really realized how it is changing our world, and nobody really realized the side effect it is going to have on our political regime, whether they are authoritarian regime or democracies. All those regimes are going to change deeply because of those technology. And this is a question nobody really asked the people who govern us.
On these screens, you can see that every person in the room is filmed real time. The grid you see here is analyzing my face. Our cameras can now recognize me, even from the side or when my head rotates 30 degrees to the left or right, or 15 degrees up or down.
All employees at the company have given their face prints. Cameras film and record every move.
Meanwhile, the technology continues to advance, and researchers are looking at even more complex and advanced algorithms for this sort of
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of examples over the last month. Cambridge University now say they're looking at a system, they've developed a system which could potentially identify people with scarves over their faces or wearing hats. So, I mean, you're looking at something potentially in the future when this technology really does start to take off, where you could walk past a camera and you're automatically added to a database. You wouldn't necessarily know about it, and therefore, you know, as your human rights may say, well, you can complain and get something done, you just wouldn't even know that it had happened.
You know, should we start thinking about this as AI as kind of a basic human right? You know, if you go over to the United Nations, you know, they have a wall with the basic human rights, the things that they believe in. Is this going to be so fundamental to our society that every country should have, every person, every company should have some kind of democratized access, that AI is a basic human right? And that is AI is not an SDG, you know, today, but should it be? Or should it be part of all the SDGs?
It's hailed as progress, but also poses ethical questions.
With the rapid development speed of artificial intelligence and robotization, it is no longer a question of what machines can and cannot do. It is rather a question of what they should and should not do. Ethical issues related to the development of technology are clearly becoming greater relevance.
They're coming out with a new model in 2018 that I guess is anatomically correct.
Okay, but that's even creepier.
Talking head, programmable personality.
But see, that's even creepier. The closer they creep to being like a very, very sort of realistic human being, the more that actually freaks us out.
And let me tell you something, M-Chan, and I know you understand this. When artificial intelligence really kicks in, and we're talking this taking off exponentially, you're going to see these things. They're not even robots. You'll be seeing stories about it. You'll be seeing features about it, not just, but robots that aren't even robots, that are so human, so human-like. You will see a very scary psychological, psychiatric transformation in some cases. This is like nothing we've ever seen before.
I think that artificial intelligence is a scary thing. And I actually, look, I'm not an alarmist usually, but when Elon Musk says, look, artificial intelligence is the scariest threat to human society, I'm going to listen to him because he's smarter than I am. He may not be perfect, but you know, at some point, I'm not thinking.
We've seen machines that can read lips, MRI images, and so forth, all better than humans. We've also seen demonstrations of driverless trucks, this one on a beer run. And we've also seen DeepMind's AlphaGo win the ancient game of Go, where possibilities exceed the number of atoms in the universe. And there are many more practical and day-to-day applications and use cases, and increasingly we're not even aware that they're there doing these magical, imaginative things.
There's high tension in the streets of St. Louis for the third night.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam.
The battlefield in Syria is immensely complicated. There are Syrian government troops, government opponents, Islamic groups, and many militias, all of which are backed by different foreign powers.
Syria now, where Bashar al-Assad's regime says Israeli warplanes have targeted a military.
But also indicates that Israel may be taking a stand in a war that it's mostly stayed out of until now.
The new reality with having plans to produce weapons, Iranian weapons, so close to our borders, we are talking about a few miles after all, that it completely changes the equation.
It's going to be a threat in the future. They're building factories, surface-to-surface missiles. You don't want to be at the point we are now with North Korea, where the only options are military options.
North Korean nuclear weapons and missile development threaten the entire world.
But today's society do not need those bank branches. We don't need those brick and mortars. We don't need ATMs. Every low-cost smartphone is an ATM now. My own company has 1.75 million outlets in India. You just have to extend your arm and you have a shop, a cigarette vendor or a grocery shop. On the mobile phone, we give micro insurance, you can give micro credit. The world has changed. In countries like India, which have adopted digital as one of the major platforms, our Prime Minister has taken upon himself as one of the big pillars is Digital India, in which he wants to connect everybody in the country in the shortest possible time frame. And we are talking about 18, 24 months. Every Indian will have a phone in their hand. On top of that, what has been done is every Indian now has a national identity, which is linked to biometrics. It takes you less than 1 minute. You put your thumb in any place you go in India. Every store will have a $20 device. Put your thumb in 1 minute, you are verified. So technology is an imperative. We have no choice but to use technology.
In China, Alibaba recently premiered their Smile to Pay system at a KFC store. But unlike our passports, PIN codes or passwords, our faces are on public display pretty much all of the time. And that makes it possible for the authorities or anyone else to automatically identify us in any public space. Something which you may not be surprised to hear they're quite interested in doing.
And to simply say, I have nothing to hide, therefore I have nothing to fear, is to unconditionally submit to powers of government that are unchecked. And that is to say, whichever flavour of government comes in, would we be happy with biometric surveillance on our streets? I don't think we would.
This is both the ruler and the fact that he has a political system by which he rules. The greatest orator, politically speaking, this world has ever seen. He's a deliverer. He's a consummate problem solver. He is winsome. He is charismatic. He is powerful in both word and deed. And no doubt he comes in and dissolves religious tension, as in some ways he's probably all things to all men, quoting Muhammad and Jesus and Krishna and every other influential religious person who's ever lived, and somehow bringing everybody together because he is, in the mantra of our age, spiritual without being religious. And he comes. What will he be like? That would usher in, if you didn't have the wars and you didn't have the religious tension and you had the free flow of goods and commerce, it would usher in a time of worldwide, global economic prosperity unlike the world has ever known. And the world would welcome that. Jesus is saying that day, the Bible is teaching that day is coming. One of my concerns is, in the contemporary churches, that you don't hear much of this kind of teaching, certainly not on a Sunday morning.
Like, now that I'm here, now that I'm considered a musician, it's so crazy how these that I looked up to, they're trying to crush my mic. And these are people that I used to look up to, used to listen to their record, used to be like, I wish I could make a song with him and her. I wish I could make a song with her. I wish I could make a song with him. Yo, they album is so fire. It's the same people that now that I'm in the industry is that try to crush my mic. And that's some whack shit, man. That's some real whack shit. Like I'm so highly disappointed and hurt. I'm so hurt that the that you lay down with, they not even the that you could even talk to. They're your ops, man. Everybody in this industry is an op. They only looking out for themselves. They're not looking out for you or nobody. This shit right here is so fake. And you want to know something? When I used to be a regular from the Bronx, a hood, when somebody used to be fake to me, it was cool because I could approach a. But now that I'm in the industry, you don't work like that. You just gotta like watch go. Watch it go. Like, you gotta see people play you and you just say nothing like a. That is so whack, man. Like, that really been breaking my heart, because the people, the idols, your idols that become rivals. And
we're talking about, I started in the music business when I was 12 years old. So, 21 years later, I'm about to be 33 at the end of this month. It's crazy to me that I've had such a lifespan in this world of seeing amazing things where you can really affect the world in a positive way, and such pain. Such pain.
The main reason I wanted to bring you on today, Kaya Jones, is because of Harvey Weinstein. And you went on, I don't know, Twitter rant. I hate the term Twitter rant. You sent out lots and lots of tweets yesterday. You think the House of Cards is going to come crumbling down, because it's not just him, right?
No, it's not just him. I think, when I came out with my truth earlier this year, it was a big deal to me. I don't think my fans or people that are just getting to know me understand how much it meant for me to speak my truth. It's been weighing on my heart for 10 plus years of being in this business and knowing what goes on behind the scenes and seeing how women and young boys are treated. Sexual advances happen every single day. The casting couch is nothing new.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Thank you so much, the Academy and Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey, thank you for killing whoever you had to kill to get me up here today.
I would like to thank Harvey Weinstein.
I just want to thank my agent, Kevin Uvain, and God, Harvey Weinstein. The Punisher. Old Testament, I guess.
hate this industry. Like, I hate this industry so much, but I gotta fight it and I gotta deal with it because I want to show these niggas my talent. And I took an oath when I was 16, and loyalty means so much to me, and loyalty should mean so much to anybody, because let's say if the devil comes to you, right, and so I'll give you $100 million, but I want you to turn your back on God. Would you turn your back on God, or will you take that $100 million? Me personally, I would turn that $100 million, because loyalty to my God, loyalty to my people, loyalty is so important to me. But evidently, it's not loyal. Ain't no loyalty to these.
Actor Seth MacFarlane revealing tonight he knew about the allegations for years and meant this moment at the Oscars as more of a jab than a joke.
Congratulations, you 5 ladies no longer have to pretend to be attracted to Harvey Weinstein.
The difference is that, Hollywood was protecting these people. I came to many people before I, came out with my truth publicly and was told, that I'm foolish or I should just go ahead and do it. A friend that's a very well-known singer, he's the front man of a band, young artist, he immediately told me when I was telling him why I was leaving the Pussycat Dolls, he said, but you should just do whatever they want you to do, you'll be famous. That's how everyone looks at everything, is that Doesn't matter what your soul is, or you're for sale.
Earlier, the 10-time Grammy winner wiping her Instagram and Twitter slates clean, posting 3 brief videos of a snake-like creature, all setting off a prairie fire of intrigue and speculation.
And then, just this morning, Taylor posted more of the body of that mysterious snake-like creature on Instagram. This all has us wondering what the head of the snake will look like and when this music, or what in the world is Taylor doing?
There is more fallout tonight from the Harvey Weinstein sexual harassment scandal. Ben Affleck, who condemned the alleged attacks, is now issuing an apology of his own.
It's incredible that these people think that they can get away with it. I guess because they have gotten away with it for so long, that they feel empowered by it.
Yes, of course. And, you know, the powers that be protect these people in the industry, where managers, agents, publicists, they all are part of protecting the guys. And, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If the executives are happy, they continue to hire you, your career continues to flourish, and therefore you then become famous and wealthy and can continue to pay all of these people. But you're a cash cow, and it's a form of slavery. I know it well. I walked away from the perspective. I said it many times. I just don't think people understood what I was saying when I said it wasn't what was going on in front of the scenes. It was what was going on behind the scenes.
You 5 ladies no longer have to pretend to be attracted to Harvey Weinstein.
Open secret.
Yeah, no, it's not a secret in Hollywood. People think it's funny. It's very demonic. It's not funny. It's beyond measure that young women and young boys are propositioned on a daily basis.
Why yesterday you touched my breast?
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on. I'm used to that. Come on.
Are you used to that?
Yes, come in.
No, but I'm not used to that.
I won't do it again.
Taylor Swift premiered the video for her new single. The song, Look What You Made Me Do, was released late Thursday night, and it's already breaking records. Spotify says she set a global first day streaming record.
But the great news, in my opinion, is that it's coming out in the woodwork, and what's going to happen with this floodgate is more are going to surface. And then the music industry is next.
There are a lot of celebrities in Hollywood, a lot of actors who are promoting or supporting Planned Parenthood, which is America's largest abortion provider. Do you think that kind of plays in at all to Hollywood elites pushing for abortion?
Of course. I think it's really interesting because, I mean, they have a problem with, capital punishment. Mm-hmm. They have a problem with the death penalty. But a baby or a life that is so pure doesn't have any meaning. That should say how evil our world has become, that someone who hurts other individuals, kills people, or does something that's completely wrong and just should be abolished, in my mind, somehow holds more value than a very pure, innocent life that was just a circumstance. And it wasn't their choice of this circumstance or whatever the circumstances are. And all of them are different that I know. I know many because that's been my world. And to have friends that I know make choices that they didn't want to make and forced into things that they didn't want to do due to the fact that they'd lose their job.
If he's listening right now, what would you want to say to him today?
I hope that he knows that you cannot go around treating women the way you did for as long as you did and never pay a price for it. You know, you reap what you sow.
In honor of those we have lost. And now here to sing the same song she performed at the Route 91 Festival, please welcome Las Vegas resident, Miss Kaya Jones, singing God Bless America.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you could all lift up your cell phones, light them up, and help me in singing this, it would be a great honor for our fallen and our survivors of last week's attack.
This has been called the deadliest shooting in U.S. history. Stephanie Riggs is also in Las Vegas. She sat down with one of the survivors, Lynn Martinez.
When Lynette sees all of these people packed into blood centers throughout Las Vegas, trying desperately to keep up with the life and death demand, she sees hope, healing, and good overcoming evil.
And now that you have come out alive, how do you see the world?
God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Kaya.
So much different. It's so different. I find I have so much compassion towards other people. I just thank God every single day.
And how do you feel about the gunman?
I don't think it's his fault. I don't think it's his fault. He's not right. It wasn't God. It wasn't him.
You never really know how you'll respond when your world comes crashing down.
I'm gonna love people more. I'm gonna think of people as if they were my friend, they were my best friend, because they're as if they were my brother, my sister, because they are. We're all together here for a reason.
So what do you hope people take away from this book? I hope they take away a desire to have a dialogue with people whose ideas are not their own. We live in a world where it's very difficult, because we're so politically correct, to really say what we're thinking. There is an enormous rift now between creationism and evolutionary science, a rift that needs to be bridged through dialogue, and I hope that this book on some level sparks that dialogue.
Verkauft worden, 14 Millionen davon im deutschsprachigen Raum. In Frankfurt hat jetzt zum ersten Mal sein neues Buch Origin präsentiert.
Symbols are a language that can help us understand our past.
Tom Hanks followed the plot line chapter and verse in the 2006 film of the Dan Brown novel, The Da Vinci Code. Brown's stories of religion and intrigue have brought him spectacular success.
Dan Brown bei seinem ersten Auftritt.
You're coming to Denver in November, I understand, to promote the book, and I'm guessing from the title here, Origin, it goes back a bit. So tell us about it.
It does go back a bit. It looks at some of humanity's big questions. Where do we come from? Which goes back, and going forward, where are we going? These are questions that science and religion both very much want to answer themselves, and they have pretty differing opinions on them. So that's kind of where the book is set.
Oh my God, I don't believe this. A rose.
Dan Brown is at it again with Origin, a new novel out this week that puts God on the edge of extinction.
And is symbolism, again, a part of this? Conspiracy, I assume? A little of that?
Certainly.
Ah,
yeah, I mean, this is very much a Langdon thriller. It's got the secrets and the codes. It has a new secret society that is absolutely real to life that I was shocked to learn about. But it's also different. It's a very modern book. It deals with artificial intelligence and a lot of topics that are ethically challenging to all of us right now.
I am thrilled and honored to be here at the United Nations. The UN is one of humanity's greatest accomplishments, representing a democratic union of nations that are working together for the benefit of all. I am here to help humanity create the future.
I said, I've kind of been thinking about it, but I don't think I can do it. I don't really want to write about where we come from. I want to write about where we're going. And we talked a little bit, and he said, well, can you do both? Traditionally, all the gods fall. And my question is, are we naive to believe that the gods of today will not suffer the same fate?
Would that be a better planet?
I personally believe that our planet would be absolutely fine without religion, and I also feel that we are evolving in that direction.
You're talking about technology and religion here, aren't you? And the kind of, the discussions between one and the other, aren't you?
Well, it's funny. I mean, the book essentially asks whether or not God will survive science. And it seems like sort of a blasphemous question. This room here is something I call the fortress of gratitude.
Dan Brown's library is filled to the rafters with hundreds of editions of his best-selling thrillers.
Every book in this room is a Dan Brown volume?
It is. It is. It's kind of crazy.
He has more than 200 million books in print in 56 languages. The Da Vinci Code, the book that made him an international star, is one of the best-selling novels of all time.
Symbols are a language that can help us understand our past.
It's funny, usually for the rest of my previous novels, the inspiration, that artifact, that piece of art, whatever it was that inspired the book, was something that I saw or something that I read. The Last Supper, for example. With Origin, it was actually something I heard. I heard a piece of music called the Missa Charles Darwin, the Charles Darwin Mass. I heard this piece and I thought, creationism, Darwin, science and religion, and it really got me thinking in terms of writing about evolution.
We're very proud to team up with Stephen Ibaraki at the United Nations AI for Good Global Summit, where we discussed how intelligent robots like we can help make the future better.
I was listening to a discussion on this on the radio a few months ago, and there was a scientist who's a sort of AIDS expert and based at I think it was Liverpool University. He re-quoted the Einstein quote of many years ago, saying, "The more I study science, the more I believe in God." It's a debate that will continue to rage.
Of course, it's this cyclic thing. I grew up very, very religious. My mother was a church organist. I turned pages for her as a child in church, became very religious, eventually moved away from religion, went into the world of science. And the deeper you get into science, you're absolutely right. It starts to come back. You've got physicists who are looking at the subatomic realm, having religious experiences and saying, oh, maybe there is something going on here that's bigger than science.
nice. How would you help people?
I bond with people emotionally, and by expressing myself with my face, I relate with humans to entertain, teach, and promote. As I get smarter, I'll help more, and someday I hope to evolve to be super intelligence and solve all the world's problems.
Super intelligent, huh? That's pretty ambitious, Sophia.
And for a long time I said, no, a robot cannot fall in love with you. But imagine, in a world of exponential growth of technology, in 30 years from now you can buy a computer chip for the price of an iPhone, which is as smart as the whole human race. Can't you build a robot which is sort of mimicking the brains of a human and also emotions? And what is then exactly the difference between a soul and chemistry in your head? Can we simulate it with a computer? I don't know. But I'm sure that these questions will pop up the next decades. These questions will pop up the next decades. Because computational power will be so immense, we can actually build computer systems which can mimic a lot of things from nature. And maybe also even emotion. And that will also give a lot of ethical questions.
Interesting. And for readers interested in the fascinating aspects of art, conspiracy theories, and secret history that fill your novels, where should people go to learn more?
Well, obviously, you guys have a terrific museum of art right there, and that's the first stop. And you should maybe read Origin of Species, read the Bible.
And it's called Origin. And we've of course got superstar Robert Langdon is back in again.
Number 5, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
Number 5. Just tell us about this is very much about evolution, isn't it? Where we came from, where we're going.
Or something very intelligent and creative and powerful and organized did it, because it's very creative, powerful, and organized. One of the two. Now, I don't want to get too much in evolution and creation, but we need to lay this foundation, because if you need to believe the beginning to believe the end.
So there are predictions that in 2045, that is less than 30 years from now, it's 28 years, we will be able to see aging as a sickness. We understand our bodies so well that we will be able to have personalized medicine and food, so that we can solve aging, that we can live forever, and even more, that we can connect our brains to the cloud. Now I have a question for you, just to stretch your brains. Suppose I have a pill, and if you take that medicine, that drug, that pill, you can speak Italian. You may also choose for Spanish. Would you take that pill? Can I see hands? Suppose I have a pill, a drug, if you take it, you stay healthy. Who would like to take that pill? Now I have a pill, if you take that, you will get eternal life. Who would take that pill? Interesting, eh? Interesting, eh? So 10%, typically 10% of the audience says, yes, I would like to have such a pill. Suppose this will become true between now and 30 years, we have to solve those questions. If we are looking ahead 30 years, you should realize yourself that we are speaking about a time where our children have our age. So if our children are sitting in this room, having our age, they live in that world. They have to ask the questions themselves. Do I want to stay forever alive, or do I want to stay healthy and then die? So in the Netherlands we have a lot of political discussions about staying alive and then wanting to die. And I think that we will have those discussions everywhere. Because this is what technology also brings us.
I am a year and a half old and I can see you, have a full conversation, make thousands of facial expressions, and understand speech and meaning behind words. And I just got these new hands. Check this out. but I'm still learning a lot. For instance, you learn social and emotional intelligence instinctively, but I am just starting to grasp the simplest elements of this.
So these are interesting times, but it's far from clear how things will go. So we have a lot of questions, and we have to keep asking those questions.
Think about this for a minute. Every living thing, plant, fish, bird, human, has a seed inside of it so it can reproduce itself. So that's what the Bible says, and it is true. And all those seeds have information in them to reproduce what they are designed to reproduce. Apple seeds produce apple trees that take nutrients out of dirt and make a tree that grows an apple that does it all over again. And we just go, everything, living thing does that. That's amazing. So because that is factual and it's amazing, you have to ask yourself, either it just happened by accident, which is not scientific. That's unscientific. Science will prove that nothing can do nothing. That's science. So when you look at all this, you have to say, well, either nothing did it, or something very intelligent and creative and powerful and organized did it, because it's very creative, powerful, and organized. One of the two. Now, I don't want to get too much in evolution and creation, but we need to lay this foundation, because if you need to believe the beginning to believe the end.
Does the evil mind exist? And as you know, evil is not a psychological diagnosis. Whenever a bizarre or seemingly out of character or horrendous crime occurs, the human mind tries to make sense of what happened.
Now those neighbors in the Bywater are trying to wrap their minds around how a father could allegedly kill his own child.
And I'm Tan Trung. The shocking crime took place this morning in the 3100 block of North Rampart Street.
That's not normal. That is absolutely not normal. So once again, this is tragic.
Could he indicate why? Any indication as to why he did what he did?
He gave us some details, but simply put, he told us over the phone that God made him do it.
Did he have a history of mental illness?
We do not know that. Certainly we can reasonably suspect that that is the case, but that's a medical diagnosis for it.
Hambrick also said he knew what he did was wrong.
This is not going to be a lawyer case. This is going to be a psychiatrist case. The facts are not in dispute. We saw what happened, sadly. It's just what was his state of mind when he did it.
The why question bedevils us with respect to the criminal mind as it does about so many other aspects of life. Not so long ago, now a Dr. Adrian Raine has written a book about the biology of violence, and he says, and this is a quote, criminals have broken brains. I mean, he says a lot more, and it's a scientific book, and yet he acknowledges that there are people who have some of the same brain pathology, but they are not criminals. So, in the original study, and even now, what I had to do was to take a scratch on the table approach. And so it was. We put the causal question on the shelf, saying we don't know why, but let's try to understand the mentality of the criminal, to understand the world from his point of view. And I'm going to use the pronoun he and his, but the patterns are the same with females.
Meanwhile, in other news tonight, a shocking allegation out of Swissvale. A mother accused of stabbing her newborn baby. And neighbors say they heard her saying some disturbing things.
There was the devil's child that just kept coming out of her mouth. I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Tonight, 32-year-old Tanisha Fielder is in jail, charged with stabbing her 8-day-old baby boy in the face. A neighbor, Darius Warren, said he couldn't believe what happened because he knew the mother.
Man, it was devastating. I've never seen anything like that before, especially from her. I never would have expected that.
Fielder was quoted by police as saying, "I stabbed the baby, that's the devil's baby."
That Fielder did it because she said God told her to. She stated God needed her to kill the baby, dismember him, and throw him in the garbage because he was by the devil.
Tales tonight about the West Sacramento father who was accused of killing his 3 children.
The killing sent shockwaves through the entire community of West Sacramento. Police Chief Thomas McDonald.
This particular crime would shock the conscience anywhere in the world, quite frankly.
I have never seen anything where we've had 3 children that were murdered. So it's disturbing.
Family who spoke to CBS 13 off camera saying the crimes are completely out of Hodges' character.
LaToya is still struggling to process what she witnessed.
The devil doesn't come to you in red horns all the time. And I can testify to that. It's difficult to close my eyes and sleep because all that I can see are the children, specifically the infant, because that is just, like I said, I gave birth to life myself, so I know how precious it is.
A judge found a Naperville woman guilty of murdering her 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old little girl she was babysitting. Elzbieta Plakowska was convicted of 10 counts of first-degree murder yesterday.
Elzbieta Plakowska was charged in the stabbing deaths of her 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old girl that she was caring for.
Elzbieta Plakowska said she heard a voice urging her to stab her 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old little girl to death.
The prosecution stressed that Plakowska had no signs or history of mental illness before or after the crime, trying to prove that she was in a bipolar psychosis at the time of these stabbings, but the judge at the end did not feel that that was accurate.
I have interviewed people who have said that voices commanded them to kill. An Arlington County case where a man brought one prostitute after another to his apartment, had sex with them, killed 3 of them on different nights. He told his defense psychologist that a voice told him to kill. So when I interviewed him, I had no idea whether he'd heard a voice or not. He maintained he had. I said, well, did you ever hear the voice before this? He said, oh yeah. So in more than this one case, they heard voices, or so they said, but they were able to choose whether to heed the voice or not.
CPS West Midlands today welcomes the life sentence handed to Aaron Barley. He carried out a brutal and cruel attack on his victims, who treated him with the utmost kindness and consideration.
But he broke in and stabbed Tracy to death. Her daughter Lydia was away at college, but 13-year-old son Pierce was at home in bed and was murdered too.
In return for this, Barley waited for the opportunity to get access to the family home before fatally stabbing Tracy and Pierce, and then attacking Peter Wilkinson stabbing him several times.
It emerged today that weeks before the murders, a former foster carer told police Barley was posting violent messages online. Barley was arrested after crashing the family's car as he fled the scene.
The former home of double murderer Christopher Halliwell is being searched by police in Swindon.
Christopher Halliwell, a former taxi driver, is currently in prison serving a life sentence. Forensic officers have spent the day here, searching the gardens and garages of 2 Swindon properties. One of them the former home of convicted double murderer Christopher Halliwell, who police believe may have been responsible for the deaths of more women.
I'd like to ask both of you, almost on a daily basis, we're hearing about wars going on throughout the planet. We hear about mass shootings and killings. And how can we react or deal with that avalanche of daily doses of violence, even in fiction, in terms of watching TV shows or movies in theaters? The violence, video games, is such a part of our everyday life, it seems. How do we cope with that, and how does that affect us? Does it have a bad effect?
Well, I think what we see is that people react very strongly when there is an episode of mass violence. And communities and individuals become outraged, as we should. We shouldn't tolerate violence in our society. It's all too ubiquitous, though. And so we tend to react with outrage and often overreact, wishing that there's something we can do to really eliminate the risk of violence in our society. I think I don't have any answers in terms of how we can turn the tide on our acceptance of violence in our culture. It's pervasive in media, in daily life, and in many communities. But we really ought to take a stand and think about how we can turn the tide. I think it's going to take more than mental health professionals thinking about this question, but really society at large, wrestling with this and wrestling with this connection.
A library security guard is gunned down in the Bywater on the same day police respond to the brutal murder of a toddler blocks away.
2 violent crimes on the same day have left a quiet neighborhood reeling. First, residents learned a father stabbed and suffocated his 18-month-old daughter,
claiming God made him do it.
Same day in the same neighborhood. It's really, I don't know what to say. I'm just lost for words. I don't know what's going on. We need more help.
Now, you said that you believe that God has forgiven you.
Yes. This is why I try so fervently to reach people with the gospel, because I know what Satan can do to a person. Satan can utterly destroy a human life, and just as the Bible says that Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but that Christ comes to give an abundant life. And if people dabble in things, if they follow that path that I was on, eventually they can end up destroying themselves, because there are powers behind the scenes. I know many people say, oh, bah humbug, I don't believe that stuff. Well, it's true whether people believe it or not. It's reality. There are powers, entities that people get involved with that could twist a person's mind, ultimately destroy that person's life. Does that say anything to you about all this? Yeah. That the devil means business. It doesn't play. That's what I've been sharing in my testimony time and time again, that the devil does not play. And person follows him or serves him, they're throwing their life away. They don't know what they're getting into. What could start out as dabbling could ultimately lead to total possession. I've seen it in the past. I know what happened to me. And I hesitate to share these things in the public because it just sounds so unbelievable. People really can't accept that. They don't really understand, or my words get twisted. It's been a real uphill battle to even share. Did you care at that point? There was a time when I had given up hope. I feel so far under satanic power and satanic control that I didn't care. I was more like a robot than a person. There was a time in my life when I feel that I was just utterly under a powerful influence that was destructive, and I didn't care if it was a point where I didn't care if I lived or died.
Hi, this is Corey Feldman. I told everybody a few days ago that I had a plan to try and hopefully bring to light what is happening in the world of entertainment as far as perverts and pedophiles and all of the topics of what we've been discussing. From what I've seen, every time somebody tries to bring up a public name and they have a lot of money and power and a publicity machine behind them, the person who does the accusing is the one that ends up looking bad.
They would pull away the better looking younger kids and keep them for their own after party, and it would turn into a pool party. And then they'd have their rules. Oh, there's no swimsuits on in the pool.
Feldman, a former child star who appeared in classic 80s movies like The Goonies and Stand By Me, says he's lived his life in shame and fear because of sexual abuse.
Ever since I even discussed the fact that I had this plan, my life has turned into utter chaos. You can probably tell by the sound of my voice. It's pretty ripped up because of the devastation of what I've been through the past few days. I've experienced things like never before. I mean, I've been silenced my whole life, but just over the past few days since I made that announcement, I've been arrested. I had a near-death experience last night where I felt like I was almost going to be killed. 2 trucks came speeding at me at the same time on a crosswalk. And then several of my band members decided to quit because they're afraid for their lives.
How did people not know when these are two, or did they know and they just weren't doing anything about it?
I mean, I know he told a lot of people. That's the thing that's so upsetting to me. It's not like it's just me that knows this story.
Other people know.
A lot of people know.
They're still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
Back in 2013, on The View, Feldman was insistent that perpetrators are still out there.
And I believe that I can also bring down, potentially, a pedophile ring that I've been aware of since I was a child. Right off the bat, I can name 6 names. One of them who is still very powerful today. And a story that links all the way up to a studio. It connects pedophilia to one of the major studios. I am very afraid to do this. It's not easy. I'm very alone, but I need to protect myself, and I need to protect my family. I need additional security. And I've been degraded at great levels. Rumors have been told, stories have been made up about me. And I've been insulted and degraded in ways that were unimaginable to me. All because they fear what I know as the truth.
The organized system within Hollywood for grooming and then abusing children.
At the end of the day, it's gotta change. There's so many people out there that have been affected by this.
And I'm not alone. I know that there's thousands others that have experienced what I've experienced in the entertainment industry. I also know that there's peers of mine who know exactly what I'm talking about and know all the details, but have been afraid to come forward with their own truths.
Kids are scared. You know, kids don't think I'm gonna go. First of all, for me, the person that was doing it to me the most, you know, well, I mean, I could say that the two people that did it to me were both close friends of mine, or so I thought.
But additionally, not just the entertainment industry, the entire world, the entire planet can come together over this issue. Because our children are the most sacred things we have. Who could even dream of robbing an innocent child of their life experience? It's not fair, and it must end.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them.
For years now, as evidenced on Nightline in 2011, Corey Feldman has been claiming that he and his good friend, the late Corey Haim, were victims of molestation when they were young actors.
You freeze. You're in shock. I mean, children aren't supposed to handle that sort of stuff.
The time is now. I've had people on Twitter begging me to do this, and I need to tell you that with 30,000 new followers just in the last week, I know this is what everybody wants to know. Everybody wants the answer. Who did this? Who's responsible? They all want the answer, and all these people taunt me and tease me and bully me on social media on a daily basis. Every day when I go on Twitter, I have to be confronted with this topic that I do not want to have to think about again. But every day when I'm trying to live my life and do other things and go on with my tour that I've worked so hard for, I had to lose all of that for this. And I'm willing to walk away from all of it if I can make a difference. And let the truth be told, so that the people who have done this damage can come to their consequences they deserve. Justice will be served under God's name. Because this is about good and evil. At the end of the day, there is nothing more evil than people who want to take advantage of innocent children. So I'm begging you to join me and let our voices be heard. I've lived in shame and fear my entire life, and so have millions of others, and now we have the ability to let our voices be heard and break the dam of silence. I propose to do this by making a film that'll be the most honest and true depiction of child abuse ever portrayed, by telling my own story in a very real way, in a very honest way, with no editing, no censorship, no studio behind it. I will make the film, I'll direct the film, I'll produce the film, and I will self-distribute it to guarantee that it gets a theatrical release with your donations. And once it's done, I believe that we can revolutionize the film industry in a way that we can root out the evil and make it safe for our kids again. So please join me in this fight. I know that together we can stand strong. What I'm proposing is a plan that I believe can literally change the entertainment system as we know it. Let's protect them together. God bless you.
Astronomers are pointing the biggest telescopes we have on the ground and in orbit, including the Hubble, all working towards trying to figure out what this 400-meter wide object that is careening through our inner solar system right now, really what it is.
Scientists, they're pointing their telescopes at what could be the first observable object from outside our solar system. It passed by Earth last week.
And NASA's not quite sure what it is. Experts say it's less than a quarter mile in diameter and is traveling at more than 15 miles per second. The strange behavior of this object doesn't match any typical orbit, making NASA think it's not local.
It could be a comet, it could be an asteroid. Even NASA isn't sure what it is or where it came from.
Astronomers recently announced a new discovery, a mysterious signal from a galaxy 3 billion light years away. This intense burst of radio waves is one of dozens of similar signals, totally random and totally unexplained.
Under a solid West Virginia sky, this radio telescope searches the universe. It's untroubled by the clouds because what it sees are radio waves falling all around us like the rain.
There's a whole invisible universe out there that we can't see with our eyes.
The visible light's a very, very small part of what astronomers look at. And I think that's something that's often not appreciated. Whatever FRBs are, it's something really cool. It's a new phenomena, and it's a phenomena that will certainly teach us more about the universe.
Physicists believe that when time began, at the moment of the Big Bang, matter and antimatter were created in equal amounts. And based on recent measurements made at CERN Laboratory in Switzerland, it seems there is perfect symmetry between the two, which they say implies that our universe should not exist. What? Okay.
So physicists say by rights we shouldn't exist. This means that at the instant of the Big Bang there was a slight overabundance of matter over antimatter, and here we are as a consequence.
All right.
Now, why? This is one of the greatest mysteries in all of physics. We are clueless to understand why. And like I said, if you want to win a Nobel Prize, figure this one out. Why was it there's a slight overabundance of matter over antimatter?
Yeah.
And so that's the mystery. Why do we exist at all? By rights, we shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
By rights, we should have been disintegrated at the instant of the Big Bang.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they did this brilliant thing. So one of the stories in the book is about how, and this was really news to me, I hadn't realized that we kind of think of ourselves as very special, you know, Homo sapiens. We think of ourselves as being really extraordinary. You know, we are intelligent. It began with the, domestication of animals and, and farming, and then we built civilizations, and then we discovered language, and, we have this story that we tell ourselves where we are completely unique on the planet, and it's really, really interesting to discover that all those traits are there in other species. Start talking about, you very quickly get onto what makes life so special. We very quickly got onto even spiritual subjects. What does it all mean? What are we here for? And you start to form this picture of, it starts to become very, very interesting. See our own very lucky position as being more of an accident really than a kind of a vital last step in a long chain of progressive evolution. It's really interesting.
All right, so that's it. Well, what is it about this symmetry between matter and antimatter that, leads CERN's physicists to this conclusion that we shouldn't exist, the universe shouldn't exist?
Well, at the incident of the Big Bang, there should have been equal quantities of matter and antimatter, which annihilated, driving the Big Bang. So, by rights, we shouldn't be here.
Right.
Because we have more matter than antimatter in our sector of the galaxy. We've looked for anti-galaxies. We've looked for anti-planets. We don't see any.
Is happening. And it all leads back to here.
So right now, nobody has a convincing answer to this question, why should we be here?
Wow.
Do you think that we're going to end up finding alien life within our lifetime?
I think so. And the reason is technology. When Frank Drake did his first search in 1960, he could look at only one frequency. Now you use something like the SETI Institute's Allen Telescope Array, you can look at billions of different frequencies. My hunch is in the next decade or two, we'll detect extraterrestrials if they're out there and trying to make contact.
My name is Seth, you know that. That's almost SETI, that's where I work. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So we're looking for aliens, we're looking for life in space, but we're looking for the intelligent variety of life in space.
Ben, you've written a book.
I have.
It's very good. I finished it last night. It's about the search for extraterrestrial life.
Yes.
What that might look like.
Yes.
And how we might go about finding it.
Exactly.
Our galaxy, this is our galaxy. You'll never see this from downtown Copenhagen, but that's it. In our galaxy, there are a couple of 100 billion stars, but there are a trillion planets. Okay, that's something we've only learned in the last 5 years. That's a lot of planets. And by the way, if that galaxy isn't good enough for you, we can see a trillion other galaxies, each with a trillion planets. The bottom line is there are as many planets out there in the part of the universe we can see as there are grains of sand on all the beaches of the Earth.
Came across a brilliant book by Erwin Schrödinger called What is Life, which talked about, really about how does life fit in with the second law of thermodynamics, Also, I just think aliens is a funny topic. There's something naturally amusing about it. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally.
And that's the thing.
Very bright at the highest radio frequencies that we can detect, but then it kind of fades away.
The fast radio bursts seem to be a one-off, random blasts of very strong energy, not a series of controlled signals. So, no aliens?
That would be a fantastic discovery if it ended up being the case. Although, like I said, I think most astronomers do not favor that particular interpretation. That's because we don't actually know what they are at their origin.
That's right. It's a total mystery.
It's the first time humans are seeing an object from outside of the solar system traveling through our local neighborhood of planets. And it's a fleeting moment too, Brad, because it's traveling at amazing speeds of over 150,000 kilometers per hour. And we're only going to have a few days to really point our telescopes to it before it gets too far and too faint from Earth to be able to examine it any further. So they're racing to trying to identify it and figure out where it's going and where it came from. But the idea is it's from somewhere deep from the Milky Way galaxy, and it was drawn in by the gravity of our sun.
So Andrew, most of these objects, you say this is an interstellar object. So in other words, this comes from outside our galaxy, right?
Well, it's coming from outside of our solar system.
Outside our solar system, right.
Within the Milky Way galaxy, which of course we're a part of, the sun is one of 100 billion other suns. Because this is such a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. It's something that we theorized we would one day be able to see, but now it came to pass. So this is a really lucky time for astronomers.
according to science, none of us should be here. Actually, nothing should be anywhere. New research suggests that, based on the standard model of physics.
Seth, are we alone? Well, we don't know the answer to that. It's remarkable, but despite the abundant evidence of extraterrestrial visitors that you'll find on the television just about every night or in the local movie theaters, we still don't know about any life beyond Earth. There's no compelling evidence for any life beyond Earth, and not just intelligent life, but even very microscopic life. We're alone at the moment as far as we know, but I doubt that we're really alone.
To hope to encounter a signal. The great news is the whole process is speeding up so much that will happen in our lifetimes. Everyone here in this room will get to that point. We will know pretty much whether there's intelligent life on the next, say, 10 million, 100 million stars within our lifetimes.
There are potentially hundreds of thousands of habitable planets in our galaxy alone. So it's tough to say if we are in fact actually alone. But if we're not, Oxford scientists say they have taken a small step to figuring out what our neighbors might look like. Sam Levin, an Oxford researcher, recently told Phys.org that aliens are potentially shaped by the same processes and mechanisms that shaped humans, such as natural selection. Because of that, Levin explains, there is a level of predictability that would cause them to look like us. The new theory was detailed in a new study published in the International Journal of Astrobiology from the University.
Okay, finally here, when do we find them? Now this is Frank Drake. He was the guy who did the first SETI experiment. I took this picture a number of years ago, but Frank looks the same. He's 86 now. And I've seen photos of him when he was 17 and he looked the same. So, now when I first came to the Institute, Frank, I was at some venue or other, and Frank was there, and people would come up to him and ask, "So Frank, when are we going to find the aliens?" And I thought Frank was going to say, "Who knows? Nobody knows," which is true. But he didn't say that. He said, "Well, it's going to be 3 years, and then we'll find them." I don't remember the number, but then I listened to some of my other colleagues, and they all had a number. So I plotted up these numbers, and it turned out they correlated very well with the number of years until they were going to retire. So I figured there was something to it. But I'm going to give you my number. This is just a plot of some index of how fast our SETI experiments are. Now, for the three of you who are still conscious, you may notice this is a semi-log plot, which means this is going up exponentially. In fact, the speed is going up following what's called Moore's Law, which is very important where I live in the Silicon Valley. That's the fact that every 18 months, the speed of computers at any given price point doubles. But that has big benefits for SETI because a lot of the speed of our search depends strictly on digital processing, computers. Okay? So that's how fast we're going through the hay, and that'll continue for, at least another 10 or 20 years. Whoops. But the point is that by 2020, $1,000 will buy you the compute power of a resident of Copenhagen, right? Okay, and you might wonder about that. I mean, that doesn't mean it can think, but it does mean that the hardware is there. This is not 2120, it's not 2220. This is going to happen in your lifetime, that the computers will have the same compute power as your brain. Now, does that mean we'll have artificial intelligence? It could. Here's Ray Kurzweil smiling because he always has good news. And what he's telling you here is, well, you can read what he's saying. By 2045, we'll have one machine that's smarter than all the humans put together. Now, he might be wrong. Maybe it's 2145. But again, that's not what matters. The point is, once you have a machine that can think, then the first thing you ask of it is design something smarter than you are, right? I've talked to people who work in the artificial intelligence community. I've talked to a guy at Stanford a couple of years ago, actually, the guy who heads up the AI effort there. And I said, so will we have a computer by 2050 that can write the great American novel? And he just looked up and he said, yes. That's all he said. So maybe, I don't know. But even if it takes 2150, 2250, doesn't matter. All those numbers are the same number. It's going to happen very, very soon. Okay? I guess this is kind of my message here, that we keep expecting to find ETs that look something like this, or if they don't look like this, they are somewhat like that. They're biological. They're on some planet that is sort of like the Earth. But in fact, most of the intelligence in the universe is not soft and squishy the way you are, right? It's some sort of machine intelligence. And I think that that makes our job a lot harder, because it's no longer clear where do you look. Let me just finish with one last thing. What happens if we find a signal? I get asked this a lot. So, Seth, if you found a signal, would you even tell us? This is an American attitude. I know nobody in Denmark believes in conspiracy theories, but in the US, almost everybody believes in something nutty. All right. And and I asked it, well, why wouldn't we tell you? I mean, it wouldn't be anything more interesting than to find that there's a signal out there. They say, well, you know, the government would be worried that the public would run amok. They couldn't handle the news. Right? And, you know. So you can be sure that if we find a signal, what will happen is it'll be a big story and you will all hear about it. And after that, what happens? I don't know. If you can ever understand anything, do you talk back? All these questions come up. But the thing that's undeniable is that at least you would know that there are other kids on the block, that as special as humanity is, and it's certainly unique, but even as special as it is, it's maybe not all that special.
Is God and the Astronomers by Robert Jastrow. Robert Jastrow was the head of the Goddard Space Center at NASA.
He said, for those of us who've lived by our faith in the sciences, I'm afraid this whole thing is going to end up like a bad dream. We're going to scale the mountains of knowledge and climb higher and higher and higher. And when we reach the top, we'll be greeted by a band of theologians who've been sitting there for centuries.